Hi, my name is Tamsin Storin, and I'm here to talk to you about some math strategies for your students. It's very important that you use academic vocabulary when you're working with your students. For example, if you have a number line and you're comparing integers, you're going to want to use words like less than or greater than. This is to keep students focused on the precise academic vocabulary they're going to see throughout their math careers. A non-example, if we had 3 is bigger than 4. Well, 3 in this example here is bigger than 4 when it comes to size, but when we're talking about comparing their value, 3 is less than 4. Here is a visual that I love and I did not create, but I got from a really awesome presenter one math training I went to. And this is the visual place value chart where you can see here that the 1 is the main squeeze, the OG, the original, the one and only, right? This helps students to see that it's not necessarily the decimal point that's in the middle, it's the 1 unit. And anything to the left of the 1 gets greater or increases by the power of 10, and anything to the right decreases by powers of 10 as well. It's also really beneficial to have word walls. These are more than just word walls, I guess, when it comes to math. You want to have things that have either translations if you're working with ESOL students, or something that, like as you see here with percent, something that looks like the vocabulary word that you're trying to portray. Having visuals are really important so students can be reminded of what it is that you're trying to get them to remember and the concept that you're trying to teach. These word walls can be done alphabetically. They could be done on by topic, by chapter, by category. It's completely up to you. It's just really, really helpful for students when they're trying to remember all these different concepts. They have a place where they can go to refresh their memory with the visuals. And ultimately, the goal is that they will have these visuals in their mind, and they'll be, able to pull them up and think about them when they're solving their problems. For students in grades 4 and up, it's super important that you have them using their reference sheets as soon as possible. This could be something that you put on a bright colored piece of paper so they can find it easy, or even in some clear sheets, something where they can reference it so when they do get to their assessments, it is something they can be familiar with and know where the things are and know how to use it and know when to use it. Definitely my favorite is the hands-on activities as often as possible. These are time consuming at times, but they don't have to be. They're things that students really need in order to understand exactly what it is, this abstract thinking that we're trying to get them to make, and what it is they're doing in the process. So might seem like it takes a little extra time sometimes, but it is in the long run going to solidify their understanding of that concept or that skill that you're trying to teach them. There's also math tools online that are digital from Envision. Those you can use to pull up and manipulate and visually go through the concept or skill with your students on the smartboard. You can even utilize that in small groups with your students where they can come up to the smartboard themselves and manipulate the tools. It's even something that you can share with them and they can do on their use as a tool on their Chromebooks. One of the resources that are provided by Savvis Realize are presentation slides. So if you have a curriculum that provides you some slides, you can use those, and I'm going to go through some ways that you can scaffold them and spruce them up so that your students are able to really benefit from what is presented to them in the slides. So looking at this slide as an example from Savvis, it is, the introduction, the first example, and just try to think about what might be some roadblocks students might encounter, any type of students, ESE students, ESOL students, any of them that might encounter when viewing these resources. One thing comes to mind is it's really wordy. There's words everywhere, right? There is a visual, and I agree, I like the visual, but there's a lot of information at once, okay? These visuals don't help when you're not really understanding all the rest of the word parts. So the best thing to do is to start with an example or an explanation of the key vocabulary that's going to be used in this particular lesson. So here's just an example. This problem is on simple interest, explaining what an interest rate is and all the different parts that might come to that, and even asking students what their background is with that and bringing that knowledge to their core so that they can understand what it is we're about to engage. Here I took these 3 sections on the left-hand side. I took these 3 parts from the slide, and I used the same information but created 2 separate slides. Here's one right here and here, so that it really makes it a little bit visually easier for students to understand and follow. I first broke apart the formula, right? So before they given you the formula, very wordy in a little box, and I broke it down and I used some color coding. So we have our total interest is equal to P, the initial amount that's called the principal, multiplied by the rate used to calculate the interest, and T, time in years. And they have color coding, and this color coding is going to be used throughout the rest of the lesson. So if anything has to do with principal, it'll be in pink, and so on. This could also be an anchor chart that you could use with the students and print and hang out on the board, something that they can refer to. It can even go on your word wall, something they can refer to for when they have to use this formula. Then I went through and took the example and I'm going to create sentence frames with turning and talking activities for the students to engage in so that they have a moment to discuss with their peers what exactly is happening, right? So we've already talked about simple interest and interest in general, and I color-coded all the wording so that it matches the formula. And then I had some talk sentence frames. So first, they're going to explain what will happen to the principal once the interest is applied. So here's their STEM. And they're going to practice this with their peers. Once the interest is applied, the principal will blank, right? And then they're going to, after their discussion with their peers, they're going to write a sentence down in their notes. When interest is added, the principal will blank because. And again, this might need some word banks or extra support depending on the students in front of you. Now we're going to model the steps for solving the problem with the students. So here's the original word problem, and it's broken up into digestible chunks. Not only that, but it also reuses the same color coding that we've decided to use for our formula. So when you're going through this and modeling it with the students, these colors will help them to visualize exactly what part goes where with each part of the formula. Now, these images that are in the original slides that were given to them should be making more relevant sense to them so that they're able to understand exactly what is happening in this word problem. Then lastly, make sure you do the same thing to some similar problems so that they can try on their own. They might need some teacher support, but again, you can use that color coding, and then encourage them to have color markers or colored pencils. They can then go and circle and highlight and annotate on their own word problems, making sure they're able to know which part is which from the word problem that needs to be put into the formula. Thank you very much for taking the time to learn about some different strategies you could do in the classroom when it comes to math vocabulary and concepts with your students. As with every good time and every good party, you get a party favor. So here is the QR code and link to all of the resources we talked about and many, many more that I am constantly updating. So if you click on the link, or you can't click on the link because it's a recording, but if you type down the link or use the QR code, you will be able to have access to this. And so save it in your drive. And as I add more, you will have access to that as well. Thank you.